What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Pegasus 3, the new sports comedy film from director Han Han. This, of course, is the follow-up to the first two very successful Pegasus films, the first of which came out in 2019. Pegasus 2 released in 2024 and was a really mammoth success that year at the Chinese box office. Of course, Pegasus 3 is coming to us amidst the Chinese Lunar New Year, which of course is the most successful and biggest film-going period of the year every year in China. It is pretty cool now that it is increasingly common that Chinese releases and even Lunar New Year releases are getting released day and date here in the States. I mean, even last year with, of course, Ne Zha 2 taking the world by storm, becoming the highest grossing animated movie of all time. That film did not release immediately here in the States just last year. But this year, we're getting Pegasus 3, Zhang Yimou's Scare Out, Blades of the Guardian, all these movies releasing within days of their premieres in China. And that's just really shows how far we've come. I like to check in on the Chinese films that do make their way to us over here. I really appreciated Dead to Rights last year, for example. I also thought Begon's Resurrection was pretty intriguing and unique, to say the least. And of course, check out my reviews on these movies as well as all the other big films over the years here out of China. Pegasus 3, this is actually my first time with the Pegasus films. I regret not seeing them. However, as a big fan of racing and racing films, I assumed that Pegasus 3 would still work for me even without any previous knowledge of its lead character and his past exploits, and that ended up being true. Pegasus 3 is a really entertaining and enjoyable sports comedy film. Shen Teng returns to play racing virtuoso Zhang Xi, this time competing as a privateer in a rally race over in China. Is this film's plot and pacing largely very predictable? Yes. Is it still a really rollicking good time? Also, yes. Almost half the film is active racing scenes, and unlike the previous Pegasus movies, which were more time trial type racing, Pegasus 3 is a true race to the finish line, and that just makes for exhilarating set pieces. Is the production design and the wow factor as high level as Joseph Kosinski's F1 from last year? Certainly not. But I think the racing scenes in this film are more than competent. Like many racing movies, whenever there's something unorthodox happen from a strategy perspective, the plausibility might come into question, but you're willing to let that go because you're just having such a fun time with this story, which also takes itself into a rags to riches type plotting, much like the past Pegasus films. Zhang competing as a scrappy privateer against actual funded racing teams. I think the film is also just cool to watch on its own, even if you have a cursory interest. It's just because it's a rally racing film, so it's much different than F1. It's much different than Days of Thunder, Ford vs. Ferrari, all the Grand Prix, all the classic, racing films of old. We don't really have like a signature rally movie, and I don't know if the Pegasus franchise is going to take that place necessarily. But I did think it was a pretty cool and strong enough, portrayal of rally racing. I think the alt strategy that they employ at the end, in terms of taking tires that are meant for the road and taking them off road on the alternate route, again, might strain some belief here, but it was cool to see an alt strategy like that. I think one thing that might be a bit questionable in terms of the screenplay here is that the film immediately reveals to the viewer the early deception that's going on when all the car turbos are failing in the test and why that's happening and the reasoning behind all that. These are beats that are very familiar to people that know anything about racing in terms of the unfortunate relationship and necessity of funding that takes place in the expensive world of racing and how sponsors and alternative interests can often get in the way of the meritocracy of having the best people behind the wheel. Nothing that new if you understand racing or watch many racing movies. Thankfully, they didn't take too long before they revealed all of that to the rest of the characters, but I thought it was a bit interesting to just straight up tell us how that's happened really quickly. Perhaps a little bit more could have been done about the concept of like the national racing team in this movie, because before we know, you don't really get to know any of the other people that are competing to make the Chinese national rally team here. And the second half of the movie basically dispenses with that, as the people that are on that team, the finalists, are directly competing against Zhang Shi because he has to make his own entry. I think the concept and like the national pride aspect of all that not really played upon too much. I mean, there are some scenes in the main race where you see like the pit crew of the Indian team like being really invested in like this key moment before they completely disappear from the movie. The Japanese team, the Korean team, they don't really have much of an identity in the film. It's really all about the Chinese characters for the most part. Maybe I'm just an easy mark, but even a formulaic racing movie is still really entertaining to me. And I think anyone who's watched the previous Pegasus films, they obviously have a relationship with Zhang Shi and some of the other returning characters in this film. And even if maybe some of these beats are a little bit familiar to especially Pegasus 2, where, you know, the rags to riches, up against all odds type thing, you're kind of rehashing some of that again. It's still fun to be with, to be honest. And this film is, in fact, leading the way at the Chinese Lunar New Year this year with a strong opening start of, you know, over 360 million, projected to gross at least 600 million in China. Interestingly, the Chinese Lunar New Year box office period is actually down almost 40% from last year, which of course was fueled by Ne Zha 2. And in general, you know, just kind of analyzing and following the Chinese box office, it's been kind of interesting to see how that happens, where the Lunar New Year period is so indicative and so essential to the rest of the performance, where the Chinese box office has been struggling locally, right? I mean, the struggles we have here in the States and Canada and Europe, those are not struggles that China is immune to. China is also having a lot of problems with overall box office. And the Lunar New Year is like this massive spike where they might actually catch up and, in the case of last year, actually pull ahead in terms of total box office. But if you can take out this period from the rest of the year, you're seeing declines. It's an interesting trend, worth paying attention to. But I'm just happy that these movies are coming to the States, you know, in a limited release capacity, of course, but coming to the States in such a quick amount of time. I mean, I've been accustomed to just a few years ago waiting a month, 6 weeks to get a release if we ever got it, you know, so this is certainly a big change. And Pegasus 3, I actually was able to see this movie in IMAX, and it was only in IMAX a few days, you know, but the fact that I was able to get any IMAX screens so soon after it came out, like, again, this is just uncharted territory. It's very cool. Because remember last year, Ne Zha 2 re-released a second time in an English dub, again, just speaking to how things have changed a little bit. But let me know, what do you think of this movie? If you've seen the previous Pegasus films, how would you compare it? If you're new to this franchise like me, were you pleasantly surprised? Somewhere in between, let me know. And for more movie reviews, including more Chinese movie reviews, I'm also going to do a review on Scare Out from Zhang Yimou and Blades of the Guardians next week. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time.